So our course objectives are right here. We're going to show you how to build an effective header, a summary, and about section. We're going to use some nonverbal communication strategy with the profile photo and background image to influence first-time contacts. And we're going to demonstrate some effective social networking skills to find the right mentor opportunity. So, part one, defining your LinkedIn purpose. 5 things to consider when starting a profile. I think of all the things that I've seen LinkedIn in its capability to help others, I think the most important one, of course, is finding the professional mentors. Obviously, LinkedIn is very effective at networking. What a lot of people also don't see about LinkedIn is the fact that it provides an awesome research capability, not only for job opportunities, but also for industry-specific information. And of course, professional status. If you hold an MBA or a PMP or some other form of professional status, whoops, this is important to put these there as well. And of course, the one that everybody understands, and that's the and it went back to the start here. Hang on a second. Let's get back online, guys. I apologize. So I got our question already from Bon Borja Esman. Yes, it has begun, and we will be receiving a recording of it if you ask for it, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So job opportunities. So let's review the basic part, okay? Services, users. Any questions so far? I would like to take the next part of this class to talk about the difference in communication styles. So, having worked on LinkedIn for more than a decade, I see a lot of this resume style speak. Typically, there's resume style terms in there. People have copied and pasted the resume and think, well, it works for my resume, it will work for LinkedIn. But as you'll see, there's some better ways to do that. Here's another example of resume speak. And here is what I call the better format, which is the first person format. Please take a second to read through these 3 paragraphs. I believe that LinkedIn acts like your old classic newspaper of yesteryear. Do you remember when you used to go to a restaurant and you would see these vending machines outside a restaurant and you'd put those 3 or 4 quarters hoping that you would get that newspaper? Well, LinkedIn has the same features, and we're going to talk about the 3 most critical ones. And those are the ones that we're going to cover in today's presentation. First and foremost, the photo. Photo is probably one of the most key elements to a LinkedIn presentation. The headline, and as we'll see later, the headline is the most misunderstood part of LinkedIn, but also the most effective way to convey one's capabilities. And then lastly, this is the about section. Here's an example of one of my many clients and his about section. Notice the first person approach. Notice some attribution, which we'll also talk about in just a few minutes. Okay, now let's go down to the 3 critical elements. Number 1, the photo. Obviously, if you can, you want to get a professional photo, but I see these kind of problems typically with most people with their LinkedIn profile photo. Some people have no photo at all. I call that the gray balloon. Imagine, if you would, going into a crowded room or into some kind of networking situation, and the other person doesn't know what you look like. They have this gray balloon, but they have no visual of you. And if you talk to professional staffing professionals, on most cases, when they see somebody without a picture, they just skip over it. We also see a lot of what I call low resolution photos, but today with the new iPhone 8s and above, this is no longer an issue because those photo sensors and those devices have the ability to provide a clear photo. We can talk about that in just a second. I often see people that have these kind of photos, which are good for Facebook or some other forms of communications. And I see often these kind of photos where there's more than one person in the profile. So here's the elements of an effective photo. It's just a headshot. You have professional dress and you use a neutral background. If you look at the second bullet, I'm not sure if you can read it, but here's something to think about. If you wouldn't wear it to a job interview, you shouldn't wear it in your photo. In other words, something that looks professional should be the case. So here's a gentleman that had the gray balloon for a photo. His girlfriend took this photo, and 2 days later, he was hired. This is my good friend Jimmy Bono. Excuse me. Jimmy is had this photo taken the second time he went to a job fair. So what happens sometimes when you go to these like live events, which I hope will be returning after this pandemic, but you go to one of these live events and you have your photo, you're looking good, you feel like that's just the photo you want to place on your LinkedIn profile. Here's the reality. About 30% of the people I've talked to will tell you that they don't get the photo. So if you do get a photo in one of these settings and you felt like that was a really great photo, make sure you get the name of the photographer and write down in your notes the time you got the picture. So if you haven't heard from that photographer in about a week, you could write back to him and say, hey, I was at this event, you took my picture, I was there approximately 2:45 in the afternoon, and you said I'd get it in a week. So there's probably a good reason or two for him not getting that picture. Number one, he could have misplaced your name and information. Two, he couldn't read your name or information. But sometimes is the case, they also don't want to return the photo to you in a timely, professional manner. And that's when you want to reach out to someone and say, hey, you're the sponsor of this event. How can I get my photo? Because they paid that photographer a sum of money to provide that to you. Lots of people go to JCPenney's or Walmart. Typically, a photo there costs you about $70 to have it taken professionally. And I will tell you, regardless of the setting, this is not the picture. This is the kind of picture you want, and what you don't want is that typical commander's photo. I have a friend named Mark, who's a retired 2-star general, and he showed me 2 pictures that he had taken at JCPenney's. One was a photo like this, and the other one was like the kind of photo you would see when he was the wing commander at a pilot training base. In other words, if you messed up, I'm gonna bust your fanny. That's not the appropriate photo. You want to be warm and friendly and approachable. After all, this photo is your first impression that you often make with people. So the thing I'd like to talk about now is the military photo. So the military photo is something that I would use up until about 9 to 6 months before your expected departure from the military. Here's a good friend of mine with his military photo, and here's his photo afterwards. Do we have any questions so far? Again, I am reading the screen and looking for any questions, and I will respond to any questions you might have. So let's just take a quick minute to review this. I'm going to look at some stuff real quick on the webinar, see how we're doing. Okay. Now let's go to what I call the hidden headline. When you go to most transition programs, they show you to create the LinkedIn headline this way. And their logic is this, that by putting these key terms into the headline, the staffing people can find you, which is true. However, you could put these key terms in another part of your profile, which I'll show you in just a couple of minutes, and you can get the same results. So in other words, if you were looking for someone that was a healthcare executive and you were in a certain part of the country, then Richard Tan's profile will come up. And I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes where to place this kind of information. So this is a skill style headline. This is commonly taught at the Department of Labor courses of the SFL-TAP. Here's another example of people before they go to SFL-TAP, they'll put that military gobbledygook or acronyms, right? Now look at Courtney's profile now. So as you looked at those last two slides, can you see the difference between Courtney's current headline as compared to the older headlines? I hope you can. I'm not seeing any acknowledgement. So I'm hoping that you get this, but if you have any questions, again, please use the chat function and I will be reading those between slide changes. Here's an example of someone with 3 headline changes. Okay, Phil, you can't see the slides? Please let me know, because I got a question for Phil Abernathy who says he can't see the slides. Okay. I'm showing that it's, let me just stop this. Do it again, share. Can you see the slides now? Okay, good. All right. So for example, here is one headline. Here is a second headline. And here is that banner headline. And by using all these elements, you'll see in just a minute why this is very important to your LinkedIn profile. So in just a second, I'm going to show you how to create a headline. I'm going to show you the hidden hack or trick for your headline. And I'm going to show you why that's important, because when you look at somebody's LinkedIn profile on a mobile device, and guess what? 65 to 70% of us use a mobile device, such as our iPhone or Android device, to look somebody up for the first time. So you can see now, after going through the presentation so far, how important that headline is to your image and your profile's branding capabilities. So we want to show you in just a second how to change your photo. First and foremost, you can click on your mobile device, and you do that by clicking on your photo icon. If you're on a desktop application, you can click there on the blue pencil. And when you do either of these, this is what you'll see, and this is how you can change it. So I'm taking my profile as an example. I put my first and last name in the first name category. Then I put a title in the last name part. Then I put that headline that says, what's unique about me? And let me say this, a headline can evolve, 2 or 3 times in the course of a couple of weeks. You can make it evolve and you can change it. And it's not always easy to put the title as we see in the last name part, but it's important that you look at this as a way to truly convey your value and what you would like to get out of a relationship with somebody that you're meeting online. Okay, so let's talk about the banner photo. To do that, you go here, you click here, you can put something in like this. If you reach out to me, I'll send you a video showing you how to factor in your profile photo, because on a mobile device, it's going to be kind of unique and kind of difficult to put certain images or certain lettering or headlines into this part without using this guide that a friend of mine just created. And I will add that to anybody that asks for that. But here's something you should know. It's about 1400 pixels across, and it's 425 pixels down. And this is what people will see on your desktop, and this is what people will see on the mobile device. We're coming to the last part of today's presentation, and we're going to talk about what I call the About section, all right? And the About section is such that it's kind of like catching fish. If you remember when you were a kid, and I know when I was a kid, my grandfather used to take me out fishing, and he'd put a worm on it with the hope I'd catch a fish. Well, the About section acts in that same way, in that you want people to look at your profile and create enough interest in what you're saying that they'll want to see the rest of your information. So, chapter 6, the About section. When you give LinkedIn some information about yourself, this is typically what happens. You get these kind of words: demonstrated history, strong business development. Another one of my favorite words is experienced. Okay, those 3 words typically show up in a lot of LinkedIn profiles where there isn't a lot of thought put into it. So let's go on to the next slide, shall we? Here's a good example of somebody that has a really concise LinkedIn profile, and one that tells people who he is and what he wants to do. Take a minute to read that real quick, if you would, while I get another sip of water. Any questions so far? Okay, Okay, question just came in from Brandon. Do the contents of the headline about me and a photo change based on time, event, milestone, or combination of both? Okay, good question. I'm going to stop here. And thank you for that question, Brandon. Number 1, the headline will change when you make some significant changes to your job. Same with the About Me section. Also, when you have significant changes in what you do, or what your goals or what your mission are, then you definitely want to use a change or put a change into your profile. And lastly, the photo, okay? I see a lot of former military people that got that no hair, they got that lovely military haircut. they, shaved, and it looks like they, would be the poster boy for the recruiting detachment. And then they grow a beard, or their hair colors changes, or they have 5 or 7 years change in their lives. It's important when you look at yourself to say, does that really look like who I am right now? Because people are looking for you for who you are, not what you were a couple years ago. Thank you so much for that question, Brandon. So here we are with the 4 steps of what I would say are the key parts to the About section. Number 1, what's your short mission statement? What's your goal? What's your call to action? And finally, what are your key skills? So about 5 minutes ago, we were looking at the medical, Mr. Tam's profile, and he had those key skills like medical officer, business development. This is where you want to put those key skills. It has the same impact as putting it in your headline. So we've covered just the basic part. I see we've got some time, and I knew that I might have some extra time, so I'm going to cover one more section in just a second. But first, I want to make sure I've answered any questions or clarified anything. And let me say this as well. If you would like for me to do some individual review of your profiles, you could do it now, or we can do it afterwards. Brandon, I know I've already helped you, so I'm looking for somebody that hasn't had my advice so far. Okay. Stop share. Back to this. Okay. Pulling up a new slide deck real quick. So this is a new chapter of a webinar that I'm going to be putting on in a couple of weeks, but it's ready for your review. What we're going to talk about is the experience section and how your awards and decorations can help you with your LinkedIn profile. So this is a friend of mine. Now he's Chief Master Sergeant Gil Weisbaum. So he provided me a couple of his awards and decks. Questions. Okay, hang on a second. We'll stop here. Look at the questions. Yeah. I'm going to stop to answer Michael's question. Yes, I am going to provide these slides to you, and I'm also going to provide this webinar if you'd like, and it'll be on YouTube. Roger said, how would you make yourself seem marketable if you're wanting to start a new career? Okay, and that's a good question, Roger. Basically, this is where you're talking to people saying, I'm looking at these challenges and opportunities. And Roger, you bring up a good point, and I think that I'm probably going to need to do another presentation on people that want to make change, because guess what? The military gives people a wonderful opportunity to make a lot of change in their lives. And if you're strategic and you think it out a couple of years before you leave the military, you'll see how LinkedIn can help you with that. LinkedIn is not just about the job, it's about goals. And I'm planning to work with a guy named Jeff Carter, who is a senior officer here in the San Antonio area. And we're going to use his timeline and how he used LinkedIn as a way to convey those goals as another webinar that'll be coming probably towards the end of the month. We're right in the process of scripting it out and putting together some key thoughts on that. But to your question, Roger, yes, you can do that. And yes, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. You can find me at my usual usual place, and Matt Shear, and I will show you my LinkedIn profile at the end of this presentation. Okay, so back to the slides, can we? And by the way, thank you, Siddiqui, for posting that. Okay. So here's Gil. At one point, Gil was working at a KAOC in the Middle East. Notice, let's go back. I went too fast. Notice some key terms which I've highlighted. The 4,000 combat missions, the 1,600 short tons of retrograde cargo, right? So from that, we found these key elements, right? And this is what he currently had on his experience section. And this is what I've recommended as a possible update to his profile. Do you see the 400 combat missions? You see the 1,600 short tons of cargo? All those key terms were taken out of the experience section of his awards and decks. Let's look at one more, shall we? Before Gil was a logistics guy, he was also an Air Force munitions person. So this award was given to him when he was in Misawa, Japan. He was a weapons loader for F-16s. Here's his awards and decks. We took a look at some of the stuff in his awards and decks. And these were the key points. And from there, we came up with this in terms of his experience section. Phil says, that's great. Was having trouble translating my military experience. Yeah, exactly. Look at the key thoughts here. Again, how Gil did that, okay? Now I'm going to take another person. In fact, he's in this room. This is my good friend, Brandon. This is a Joint Service Commendation Medal. Here's the actual citation. Here were some of the key takeaways that I created for him. And this is what I wrote. As an update for him. The challenge with updating your experience section is sometimes we get into that, and you know, also performance reports are also another good source. The challenge is to get actual data or to get actual facts, okay? Or write this in such a way that somebody that's not in the military can understand it.